Hey everybody, this is Maxine Taylor, Georgia's first licensed astrologer, back with you for another edition of Astrology 101. And this time we're going to be talking about the moon and Mercury as they run around the zodiac. We're going to look at where they are in your chart. Now, you know that your sun is either a Taurus or a Capricorn sun or an Aries sun, but you may not know what sign the moon is in your chart. By looking at the chart, I can tell you what sign your moon is in, and at some point we will go over that. But right now, let's talk about what the moon is illustrating in your chart. If the sun is daddy's message, the moon is mommy's message. The moon is our subconscious mind. It is our sense of security, and wherever it falls in your birth chart, this is where your mother told you, either by word or deed, either by her presence or her absence. This is where she told you to look for your emotional security. Now you notice I'm not saying this is where she told you you would find it. This is where she told you to look for it. It's very interesting because there is a little catch-22 as we go around the zodiac. The moon deals with our moods, with our emotions. Think of the moon. It's flexible, it's changeable, it grows and then it gets full and it pops and then it wanes, and we run out of energy on the dark of the moon, which is when we look up at the sky and we can't find the moon. And then it starts growing and the energy grows again. So the moon rules the public as well. Well, let's personalize this, shall we? Okay, looking at the chart, if you have the moon, it looks like a sliver of moon. If you have the moon in your first house, wherever the moon is what you are instinctively drawn to. It is the part of you that says, I want to protect it. Well, in your first house, you're very self-protective, aren't you? You're going to want to protect you. You may be changeable, right? But let's talk about mommy's message. Mom says, look to yourself for your own emotional security needs. The catch-22 is that mom is already sitting there in your first house. And so she is influencing you. And she says, verbally or non-verbally, protect yourself. What she really means is do it my way. Because this first house is the most important area of the chart in that it's the most personal point in the chart. It describes you. And so you are innately self-protective. And you say, me first. Is there anything wrong with that? No, not at all. That was Mother's message to you. Let's keep on going. The moon in the second house. Well, Mother's message is get the money, honey. And what she tells you is that you are to look to your things and possessions and money for emotional security. Now again, she doesn't say you'll find it. She says look for it there. And so the moon rules the public, and perhaps you're supposed to, in this lifetime, earn your money by dealing with the public. But because the moon waxes and wanes, there can be a waxing and a waning of your own finances. Now, the second house deals with your possessions and your values, and so your mother is your possession. People with the moon in the second house feel that their mother belongs to them. There may be 5 other siblings, but people with a moon in the second house say, you belong to me. And our mother's values color ours enormously. You might say, well, isn't that true anyhow? The hand that rocks the cradle rules the world. Yes, but in the case of the moon in the second house, even more so. The moon in the third house, and I sure do hope you're following along using your own chart. Mother's message is to think, to look to your ideas for your emotional security. But the moon is emotional. And so there's a very emotional tone to your ideas. You don't just remember what happened. You remember how you felt about what happened. And so when you have planets in the third house, you have to talk, you have to communicate. With the moon in the third house, you have to communicate your emotions, the feelings of an event. And a lot of people don't understand that. If they're very left brain, they don't get it. An example of the moon in the third house expressing emotionally would be, oh, he walked into the room. I couldn't believe it. My heart started beating. Oh, and then he came over to me. Oh, that's the emotional memory. Without the moon in the third house, might not even remember him. Seriously. Okay. Moon in the fourth house. This is the moon's natural placement in the zodiac. And so when you have the moon in the fourth house, Mother's message is to look to home and family for your emotional security needs. And you do. There is a very strong emotional attachment to home and family that owns you, that runs you. And you might say, well, what's wrong with that? Nothing. If it stands in your way of doing what you came here to do, then you want to look at it and determine consciously if you want to put that much attention on it. However, with the moon in the fourth house, your home and family come first to you, and your mother is the nurturing parent. And when I say come first, it's not like Mars or the sun down there, but it is a gut reaction. You can't even think with the moon, wherever the moon is, because we're going to get to Mercury in a minute. The moon, Mercury is your conscious mind. This is your subconscious mind. The moon is what comes to you instinctively. It's your knee-jerk reaction. So there's no thought involved. It's emotion. Explains a lot, don't you think? Okay, so we've dealt with the moon in the fourth, and Mommy's message is look to your for your emotional security with your home and family. I almost tripped up and said find it. You won't find it necessarily, but that's what you keep doing. You keep looking for it and looking for it and looking for it and looking for it until one day you wake up and say, this isn't working. What do I want to change? And that is when you start moving forward in your spiritual evolution. This can occur when you're a child, by the way. Okay, moon in the fifth house. Well, we know that the fifth house is the house of fun and games. All right. It's enjoyment of all, in every single expression. And I was trying to find a tactful way of putting it, but if you love to go to the movies, that's the fifth house. If you love to play basketball, that's the fifth house. If you like to lay out on the couch and watch TV, that's the fifth house. It's fun. Now, the fifth house is also children, and so there is an emotional attachment to children. True story, though, one of my clients has the moon in her fifth house. She's a career woman. She married and questioned whether she even wanted children because her moon is in the sign Aquarius, which tends to be a rather impersonal placement for the moon. She gave birth to a baby girl. And all of her nurturing instincts, all of her maternal instincts surfaced. And she could not, probably to this day, still cannot bear to be separated from her little girl. And so if it has not been triggered, don't worry, it will be. The moon in the fifth house is Mommy's message that says play, enjoy yourself, and have children. Can you see the catch-22 from where you're sitting? The moon in the fifth house, the moon is Mommy. The fifth house is children. So your mother's like a child to you. And your child is like a mother to you. I've been doing charts since 1966, and I have seen this time and time again. So if you have the moon in the fifth house, you are drawn to children, and you will nurture your parent like a child, and your child will be your mommy. The reversal of roles. Very, very interesting. Moon in the sixth house. Well, you have an instinctive need to be busy, to be needed, to have a job. And again, anything in that sixth house, if someone says, I need you, they're really saying, I love you. And so Mommy's message is to be busy at all times. to have a job, to be of service. Now, with the moon, there is an emotional attachment to whatever house it is in. And so her message is to do what you really feel led to do, what you really want to do, what you're passionate about, what you're emotional about. And so there you are with the moon in your sixth. You will be a mommy at work. And one of your employees may remind you of your mother, not because your employee looks like your mother, because it could be a male who reminds you of your mother, but it would be the emotional attachment that he represents, or she. Very, very interesting. Okay. Moon in the seventh. Well, the seventh house is partnership. It's relationships. It's the one-on-one relationship. It's also open enemies. And I'm not trying to start World War III here. But Mama's message is get married, get married, get married. Have that partnership. Look to your spouse, to your business partners, to other people for your emotional security. So what happens? You have to have that one-on-one relationship. However, the catch-22 is that there is an emotional marriage to mommy. I think I just dropped a bomb on you. The moon in the seventh says you are so emotionally attached to your mother as an equal that you're looking for mom in your relationships. And when I say you're looking for her, this is not conscious. The moon is subconscious. And there can be an adversarial relationship with mother. Why? Because the seventh house is our open enemies, not our hidden enemies, our open enemies. And the 12th house, the behind the scenes house, those are our hidden enemies because they're hidden from our own conscious mind. It's the subconscious. Moon in the 8th house. Now remember, anything in the 8th house is going to be transformed in this lifetime. It's a fabulous placement for everything that you want to reform and transform. And so your relationship with your mother role, your beliefs, your programming with your mother is going to be transformed in this lifetime. You can take that to the bank. Now, mommy's message is to look to the cause of events, the secrets behind them for your security. So you're not interested in what's going on out front, above the table. You're a detective and you're looking beneath the table to see what's really happening. You're going to the source. And the greatest secrets that we have are where we come from, birth, and where we go when we leave here, death. And so with a moon in the 8th house, it's all or nothing. You don't do things halfway because you are emotionally attached to getting to the cause of the secrets. And that's what Mama's message is. Find the secret and keep it to yourself. Moon in the 9th house. Wow. Mama's message is to expand your horizons and spread your wings and soar. Follow the sun. Chase the far horizon. Her message is you will look to your beliefs, your principles, the big picture for your emotional security. I love it there. I don't have it there. I love it there. Okay, moon in the 10th house. Well, mother then is our out front parent. Mother's message is to look to your career. Look to being a leader for your emotional security. But the catch on that is she's already the leader. And so in your career, as you're climbing to the top, you will attract people to you who represent mother. And depending on your relationship with your mother, that's how you'll react to them. And you might say, well, why would I do that? Because it's subconscious. It's instinctive. And when you see it in your chart, that's when it starts losing hold over you. It loses power over you, and you can create it your way. The moon in the 11th house. I love this. Mama's message is be a friend. And so you are instinctively drawn to groups. You're instinctively drawn to people because the 11th house is other people's children. And as I said in our first show, who are the other people's children? The entire world. Everyone is someone else's child. And this makes you a humanitarian. But here's your catch-22. Your mother says she wants to be the friend. Look to her as your friend. And you will be a mother to your friends, a mother in groups. Very interesting. It also shows that you are looking to your friends to be mom. All this is subconscious. Can you see how powerful this is? And the last placement for the moon, the 12th house of the subconscious. We have the subconscious mind, the moon, in the 12th house of the subconscious. You can see that there's a lot of processing that goes on subconsciously that you may not even be aware of. But Mama's message is pull back and retreat and give yourself privacy at least once a day. And so there is a very strong influence of Mother, particularly when she leaves the earth, because then she will be in the spirit world and she will be communicating, encouraging you to listen within. Listen to that little voice that's speaking to you. Listen to the divinity within you. So that is the moon through the signs. And I hope that you have found that part interesting. That's the subconscious mind. Well, let's deal with a conscious mind. The next planet that we'll be dealing with is Mercury. And Mercury is our conscious mind. Wherever Mercury is in your birth chart, that's what you think about and talk about. So let's do Mercury. All right, this is a very simple one. My handwriting is horribly illegible. Mercury's supposed to look something like that. I put it in blue because it's the conscious mind. So wherever Mercury is what you think about and talk about. Is this going to be easy or what? All right, Mercury's in your first house. You think about yourself and you talk about yourself. Now, you remember I told you that if you have first house planets, I want you at my next party because you're the one who's going to break the ice. Mercury in the first house is not shy about talking about themselves. This is great on a social level, don't you think? Okay, Mercury in the second house. Again, my handwriting, I apologize. You think about money and you talk about money. Well, this is really cool. You think about your possessions and what you have and how you can get more of them. And you bring great ideas to money-making projects. Isn't that cool? Now, Mercury, let me try and do this so it's legible, sort of. Mercury in the third house is really strong because that is its natural house in the zodiac. And so you think and you talk. Whatever crosses your brain, you may not have a filter. It depends on what sign Mercury is in, and we'll do that in future shows. But whatever crosses your brain, you're going to express. So you're a talker. And if you were programmed not to share your ideas, not to talk, your mind is going round and round and round and round the whole time. And even if you don't say anything, you've got that mind going. You may even have a smart crack to say, but you keep it to yourself. Mercury in the fourth house, you think and talk about your home and family. You consciously want to be with family members. You're the one who sends Christmas cards to family members. With Mercury up here in the 11th, you send them to your friends, if you even think about it, because the 11th house is the humanitarian. That doesn't really deal with details per se. So you think about your family and you talk to family, you communicate with them. It's a great placement, I think. All right, Mercury in the fifth house. Well, you think about fun and you talk about it. And talking is fun to you, right? You have a child if you have children, who is a thinker and a talker. I remember doing a chart on a lady, and she had a bunch of planets in the 5th house, and when I got to Mercury, I said, your child is really a talker. She said, oh, that's an understatement. The boy is a motor mouth. And that's what happens because this is your child's 1st house. It's your 5th house of children. It's your child's 1st house. So you think about creative projects, you think about parties to throw, you think about your kids, and you know, if you have a packed 5th house and you have children, my suggestion is when they're little, combine your fun with theirs, and it will amplify both. Mercury in the 6th house. Okay, Mercury in the 6th house is very powerful because that is Mercury's natural house. Now, did you remember I just said it was the 3rd house of the zodiac? It's both of them. Mercury rules the 3rd house and the 6th house because Mercury is the ruler of Gemini, which is, this is for the advanced people, is the ruler of the 3rd house, and it's the ruler of Virgo, which is the natural ruler of the 6th house. So, in your work with Mercury in the 6th house, you've got to communicate. You're probably a teacher, a thinker, you want to travel. Mercury gets bored easily. Even depending on the sign it's in, it's still going to get bored. And so you think about your job. You're the one who can't fall asleep right away because your mind is going around and round and round with ideas that you want to implement at work. Well, that's really cool. Okay. Mercury in the 7th house. You think about your partner and you talk about your partner. Is this a business partnership, a personal partnership? Yes and yes. You go out there to other people and you want to talk with them. And they will talk because the other people in your life, the significant others, are ruled by this 7th house. So your 7th is their 1st house, and you attract talkers. You attract people who talk about themselves. And guess what? You get to listen. And they love you for it. Because when you put the other people in your life first, if you have planets in your 7th house, you attract people who put themselves first. And so if you will put them first, it will work out beautifully. They'll love you. Now, if you also have planets in your 1st house, this can create a problem, right? Because you want equal time. And if the partnership is a balanced one, you will each have equal time. If not, it can be a pulling apart, okay? Mercury in the 8th house of transformation. Oh my goodness. Mercury in the 8th house is going to undergo a transformation. In this lifetime, your thinking is undergoing a transformation, and you are a detective. You want to look beneath the surface at what's going on. That 8th house is the secrets of the zodiac. Mercury in the 9th house, you think big thoughts. You think of higher education, travel, and you love to communicate with people at a distance. Mercury in the 10th, you think about a career. You think about being on top. And when you are on top, you need to communicate. So you're a sharer of information. Mercury in the 11th house, you think about your friends. You talk to your friends. And you attract to you very talkative friends. And Mercury in the 12th, you may not even be aware of it, but what you think about has to be filtered through the subconscious first. Your subconscious mind has to approve of it, so to speak. And so before you can give an answer to something, you have to sleep on it to find out if you're going to do it or not, to decide if you're going to. Now, very often we have a retrograde Mercury. You may have heard about that. That's when Mercury appears to be moving backwards in the heavens. It is not. It only appears to be moving backwards. But things here on planet Earth are confused. When we have a retrograde Mercury, this is the time that you do not begin new projects, but instead you tie up the loose ends of unfinished projects. You don't sign contracts during this time. Instead, you plan. Because once Mercury comes out of retrograde, once it goes direct and begins to appear moving forward, what you thought you wanted, you may not want anymore. And that's just how it is. So what you'll do is be aware that about 3 times a year, Mercury's going to go retrograde. You will know it because the car breaks down, the computer doesn't work, all kind of machinery starts failing on you. And a word to the wise. Yes, you're not supposed to start a new project. But if your car breaks down in the middle of the road and you need that car to complete your journey, you buy a car, even though Mercury is retrograde. If your refrigerator dies, you have to have a new one. So consider the new purchase simply the tying up of loose ends of an old, unfinished project. That's how I look at it anyway. And you can look on any astrological calendar and it will tell you when Mercury is going to go direct. So you may be saying to yourself, well, how do I know if I have Mercury retrograde in my birth chart? And if you're a student of astrology and really want to get to the nitty-gritty, check out this book. Now that I've cast it, what do I do with it? It's available on Amazon. It was a #1 bestseller. And this came about because my students years ago, we didn't have computers, would say to me, well, I've cast the chart. Now what do I do with it? How do I interpret it? And that's where the title of the book came about. If you have any questions that you would like to ask me, please feel free to contact me at MaxineTaylor.com. Next time we get together, we are going to look at Venus and Mars as they move around the chart. I say move around, they're stationary in your chart. What Venus is love. What Mars is passion. So, till next time, this is Maxine Taylor saying, may the stars shine brightly on you and yours.